Felix from Eleviates, Joel from Blockhead, Corey from Labs, and Joseph from Virtuous. Wondering if I could get Anthony on. Anthony's a lawyer by day. He's also a host on the Financial Governance podcast, one of Singapore's top finance podcasts available on all platforms. Anthony also has an interest in GameFi, so.
Yes, but I know nothing, so I'm here to ask the questions.
Thanks, guys.
Right. Hi guys. Before we start, I want to get into a round of you guys can introduce yourself and what you do.
Hey, I'm Joseph, founder and CEO of Red Digital, Web3 game studio and publisher headquartered in Singapore with studios in Paris, Irvine, California, and Taiwan. We formed the studio last year and primarily composed of game industry veterans from companies like Tencent, NetEase, EA, Epic, and Ubisoft. And some of us also heavily into NFTs and crypto. For myself, I've played games my entire life. One example where I saw that just having Web2 digital assets about Web3 was harmful was during COVID. I was playing Magic the Gathering, and during COVID I could only play Magic Arena, and I was taking retail from packs that I couldn't do anything with it. And from there I realized, hey, we really got to do something about this. So that's why I formed the studio. I gathered everyone, and we're 45 strong, and now we're ready to do this.
Corey here from Mirai Labs. As you can see, we made Pegasus, if you're familiar. It's the horse racing game. Not such a cool story like that. We just saw the market, we're like, sick, it's going up. Let's build some shit. So we did. And so we're a team of 80 based out of primarily Vietnam and the Philippines. That's about it.
Hey guys, good afternoon. My name is Cholo. I'm CEO and co-founder of 34DAO. Similar to Corey, like we saw the market going crazy in GameFi until last year. We said, hey, let's spin up a guild and try to do something. Obviously, that's not going that well. So we're now we're pivoting our model towards how do we still provide meaningful earning opportunities for our players via this thing called gaming. And we're agnostic to Web 2 and Web 3. What we really want to unlock is players to capitalize on their unique skill sets, whether that's marketers, content creators, play testers, or just run-of-the-mill scholars, to be able to get something better out of their passion, which is gaming. So that's what we try to unlock.
Wow, those are very interesting introductions, and I'm not sure how I can be that being the last up. But anyway, my name is Felix, and I'm the co-founder and project lead at Salad Ventures. And at Salad, what we do is we curate and support learning opportunities on the blockchain. Primarily, we focus on learning opportunities through the exchange of labor. So like Cholo, last year we started a guild, so we were very heavily invested in the play-to-earn space. But obviously over time, as the market evolved, as the market matures, different opportunities started to present themselves in the move-to-earn, learn-to-earn, different types of spaces, and that's what we are moving towards. Within Salad, we have also built some products of our own, so we built this tool called Guild OS, which lets anybody start, manage, and scale a guild on the website. Obviously, it was built for the Axie Infinity Legacy type of guild, which we believe still exists, which actually does still exist. But we're evolving Guild OS to support more of the esports teams that's playing non-Web3 games as well. The second product that we built is Apollo Academy, which is the masterclass.com for the Web3 space. Hopefully, through education, we would be able to prevent such, I guess, a disaster from happening too often in the future. And lastly, we also run a community and events platform called Club Salad. So some of you may have attended our fortnightly event called Salad Tuesdays, which we organize every 2 Tuesdays in Singapore, and also our recent GameFi Asia event. And for those who are invited for tonight, the after hours party at Swiss Hotel.
Very nice. I had nothing to introduce myself. So why don't we get into it, right? Over the past year, over COVID, and as everybody has mentioned, there has just been this boom in the market. In gaming in general, Web 2, Web 3. So where do you guys see GameFi coming in, right? terms of the industry trends and are we eating a vacuum lunch or is it something else?
Yeah, I think several years from now we're going to look back and wonder why we didn't have blockchain in pretty much every game. I think the games that came out so far were great proofs of concept, but they're not sustainable economies. So what we have to do is we have to, what digital wants to do is create very fun games that actually design blockchain as part of the experience that we actually want to bring in traditional gamers. So we don't have to have them learn blockchain or even interact with it until they actually kind of see the value of it through normal gameplay.
I guess from our perspective, I'm not sure where blockchain sits anymore, if I'm honest. Still trying to figure that out. We did a lot of experimenting, obviously. I guess you could say it worked because we made plenty of money, but that's not really the end goal here. We want people to enjoy the game. So yeah, trying to figure out where blockchain goes is quite difficult. I'm not sure, honestly, what the future holds because it's so complex. But it has its place somewhere. We just need to, I guess, figure out where that is and where it really does work and doesn't create a cycle like we've just seen.
What are Web3 eating Web2's lunch? I kind of agree with Corey's points that is blockchain essential to gaming? I guess that's what all these startups and Web3 gaming are trying to figure out. But from a guild standpoint, what we found is that blockchain is very useful in managing a community. Where because I guess from a guild or from a D2C or player engagement standpoint, blockchain lets you do interesting things like reward loyalty, reward contribution. For us, that's how we reward our continuous contributors to the company, continuous contributors to the DAO. The players that have been there from day one to day, I don't know what it is anymore. They are essentially our ideal customer, our ideal contributor. Blockchain is useful there, but I guess with regards to whether it has a place in gaming, so what really has happened is that once you tokenize an asset, whether it's a coin, a token in the game, or an NFT, you introduce financialization of that asset. And what I would say has been very vicious in this last boom and bust cycle is that the financialization and the hyper sell-offs in some of these assets has really made it a bad UX for players. And that needs to be solved before we bring in the next Web2 guy. So I don't think we can eat their lunch until we solve that. And again, there's, like Corey said, I'm not sure whether blockchain is important in that sense.
I think in the future, we won't even be using this term blockchain games. It will just be called games. I think the blockchain is like the internet when it first started, where many people believed that it wouldn't work, many people believed that it was a waste of time, and almost everybody didn't know what it could do. And I think that's what blockchain technology is, whether it is to games or to anything else really. And I think the biggest narrative here for blockchain technology in gaming has always been about ownership. But when you sort of do the surveys, you do the interviews with professional gamers, with really hardcore players in the traditional gaming space, they feel that they also own, they feel that they already have ownership. Just for example, I recently reinstalled Clash Royale on my phone again. Anyone plays Clash Royale here? Anyone? Alright, guys, let's start a clan. Looking for clan, by the way, quite high trophies. Anyway, yeah, so I downloaded it. I found my login ID and password stored on some LastPass account, right? So I got it, I installed it, and everything that I bought 6 years, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever, it's still there. And on top of that, it's given me like 6 years worth of free chests that I could open. So I was still opening. So I lost nothing in that period of time of not logging into that game. Why do I need blockchain technology for that? But playing the same game, another problem happened when I saw this new character that they launched that I wanted to use in my deck, which I don't have. if only I could just go to OpenSea to buy that character, right? So I think there is sort of merit in having these type of technology. I think that is currently not necessary, but at the same time, I still think that we're very, very early, and I think anybody who says that blockchain is completely useless in gaming or you don't need it in gaming is making a huge, huge mistake, for sure. Is Web3 eating Web2 gamers' lunch? Again, I think everything is just going to incorporate blockchain technology to the point where I guess we'll just be sharing their lunch.
All games we call Web3 games, right? All Web3 games are called games. I think that's where we can. But as we get to the next billion users, as we get more and more of people who are not involved in the space, where do you see them coming from, right? I mean, you see Ubisoft trying to release NFTs and then traditional games going, I hate this, I'm not going to try, right? So where do you see that experience and where do you see the pitch for the UI and UX coming in?
Yeah, so when Ubisoft pitched it, players didn't like it because they weren't used to it. And the way they implemented it wasn't the best way to implement it. You can't just say, oh, they're just skin to NFT. Because they're just advertising the fact that it's an NFT. But everyone, when you're on YouTube, you look up NFTs, you just see a lot of horrible case studies, they're horrible examples of it. So most players, they're used to just, let's say paying a subscription, or even, let's say someone's spending $50,000 on a mobile game. But they're not used to having that ability to actually get some value back for the time they put in. So when you see anything with NFTs, it kind of freaks people out because they just have that negative association. But for like bringing in more players, like I said, it's about bringing in players into a game that's just fun. So you're going to have people who just want to play, right? Right now, the way traditional games tend to monetize is, when you get good enough at certain games, then you go through esports, right? You make a lot of money playing esports, or you do something on the side related to like streaming. But I think the way you can incorporate blockchain in an effective manner, you can have it to where people who they just put in a lot of time and effort in it. They could earn something, but the point isn't to earn; it's to play and own, right? So you can actually own some of the assets, which means that the revenue on the developer side will tend to go down. But at the same time, people who are playing this can form stronger communities. But you have to bring in just regular gamers, because if it's from people who only like crypto, it's a very small pie. I mean, you have to increase the pie, you have to bring in people, and you have to optimize the user experience. So that's the way we show Web3 and the way the game's designed to where they don't even think about it.
Yeah, I think that's true. Mostly NFTs or Web3 not being the selling point is probably going to bring people in. Again, I think everyone is in the same position right now where we look at it like we really screwed up, thinking that people actually gave a shit about NFTs and blockchain in the games and not the money. Like, that was dumb. we were really wrong. Anyway, so I think it obviously has to get to the point where us as studios, either we recognize we're going to go and build something that attracts people who want to play with money, or we go and build a game that's going to bring in players and revenue through the traditional means, like the foundation of gaming, and pick your niche if you're going to be hyper casual, mid-core, hardcore, and just monetize through the traditional means and use blockchain where it's appropriate, where it makes sense and where it's a benefit to the user. I think one of the key takeaways out of what we've learned here is just because it can be done doesn't mean it should be done. Actually question why the shit we're doing something before we do it, otherwise I think we just end up in a dumb cycle again.
From a user adoption standpoint, which is kind of where the guilds really operated, at least from the D2C standpoint, what we really kind of have we operate a position which is kind of a position of discovery as well, right? So basically our community will, if we tell them this game is good, they'll follow us and do that game. So then of course, to Corey's point, then the guild manager should have that sense of what is a good financial decision for these players and what is not. And what we're kind of like really focusing on is really sustainable economies. But also at the same time, if we are believing this whole creator economy is going to pick up steam, the gamers will become the next entertainers, then we also need to upskill our players to let them have a career that is not just, you can, I mean, the way to monetize a gaming career cannot just be become the next big influencer, become the next big esports player. You can be something like that we've been pushing. You can be a game worker in gaming, like you can be a playtester, you can be a content writer, you can be doing so many things that games, like right now, to get access to those skills, they have to go through a big publisher that gets distribution done, that gets playtesting done. Why can't that be in the hands of the community? It actually should have more direction on what games they like and how games should evolve.
Yeah, I think the issue with the Ubisoft attempted NFT launch, I don't think it has anything to do with the gamers. I think sort of if you read through the forums, some Reddit threads, I guess the real fear really there is so imagine this scenario, right? So you're playing a game, you're probably in your teens or early 20s, you spend maybe about $500, $600 on that game account over a couple of months, buying skins, buying weapons, depending on the game that you play. Now, Ubisoft is saying that you know that this skin, which used to cost $30, is going to be an NFT, and it's going to be on OpenSea or on a marketplace, and it's going to be speculated by us crypto degens, right? So obviously they're not going to be happy because they knew that, when they know that they could have bought it for $30, now they're going to buy it at, I don't know, a lot more clearly, because we would know the news first and we would be the ones selling it to them. We would absolutely destroy the game and their game experience. I think that's a real reason. So if there is a way for them to sort of control certain aspects of this, or give back to the community via their marketplace fees to these large publishers, then I think their community or their gamers will be more accepting towards that. On the note of the free to play, I'm so confused. Play to earn, and then play and earn, and then free to own, and all these terms. Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's just it's describing the same thing. Free to own is still not free. Look at Digidai. A few people got it for free. Some of us minted it for single-digit ETH. Now the floor is double-digit ETH. How is it free? It's still not free. Nothing is free. So how is it free to own? It's just a different economics that these guys have very intelligently designed. Hopefully it works, and if it works, then more people will replicate it, and then the industry will come back into a different cycle. I think, seconding what Corey said, I think play to earn should just be called for what it is. You're playing to earn, you're really not playing for fun, and if we can agree on this, then at least we can have a discussion on how to make it profitable versus how to make something else fun. It doesn't have to be the same thing.
So in a sense, play to earn is your job is playing. Okay. Whenever you have fun with it, that's a good story. Okay, but all in all, I keep hearing things about design, right? You need to design the structure, you need to design the game to make it all make sense. So where do you think this financialization of the games, whether it's from the developer standpoint or from the editor standpoint, right? Where do you think you're getting to this? So it's like how do we make money from games now, right? Are we changing the business model? Are we going to incentivize people differently? Where do we see ourselves in?
Yeah, so for people who play World of Warcraft for several years, if they want to sell their account, the developers don't support that, so they have to go through the black market and sell it and hope nothing bad happens. So players do make money off certain games, just not supported by the developers. So in terms of the way we're designing the games out, it's just supposed to be fun, and you can own NFTs, but then even the ownership, it only matters if there's something you can do with it. So ownership for ownership's sake doesn't matter. It's about the utility, and that's online and offline, right? So let's say if you're in certain countries, if you're incorporating NFTs in that game, it needs to have something that can actually create a stronger community. So I think one part of the blockchain is it can form stronger communities, but like Corey mentioned, the play-to-earn model isn't sustainable, and it kind of takes into account the reason why people are even coming into it in the first place. But if blockchain eventually just becomes in the background where people don't even really think about it that way, then I think it can work. In terms of the way players can earn money, it's going to be similar in Web 2. I mean, even in Steam, right, it has a pretty robust marketplace that doesn't use blockchain. Right, so you can see that the creator economy would continue, but if you put it on chain, then that means you're going to at least have this thing saying you're going to let people interact with other projects in the ecosystem. So it's going to be a pretty similar way of earning. It's just the difference is you're potentially really having less control over it, which might be better for the community overall, or even as a developer. If you don't want to keep supporting that same game, you want to put it in the control of the community, then in the long run, it actually will benefit more players.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I mostly agree there. Probably something that we should take note of is that most Web3 games that launch now, the community makes more money than the publisher, which, like, the publisher makes no money, or the studio makes no money, because they're dependent on trading fees. And, I could trade something, I mint it for free, and then I sell it for $10,000. If they're taking a 3% fee to make $10,000 off of 3% trading fees, is a shit ton in trading. So I think that monetization, that system is fundamentally flawed, because these guys aren't going to have a game if the studio doesn't exist. So the studios are going to, I shouldn't even say greedy, but become more greedy in the sense that they're going to take more revenue because we need to survive. And probably should note, I'm just talking from a studio perspective here. But yes, when we look at it, it's like we can have 100,000 players, but if no one's trading and we don't make any money, like, that's effing expensive to maintain the servers and stuff like that, to allow people to play. We're going to die. So we need to figure out how to make money first as a studio. So I'm not sure whether players are going to make money, and I'm not sure if it's our responsibility to ensure that they do make money. I think we can allow them the potential to speculate, but as a studio, I want to make money. So I'm going to enable myself to make money first, and then potentially allow them to make money. But I think you also need attachment to the game, so you've got to make a good game. So yeah, it's freaking complex, I think.
Yeah, totally right.
I completely agree with that on a couple of points. I think we in Web3 need to accept the reality that people play games not purely for profit and gains, right? So I'm a big player of Dota 2, CSGO. There is a huge player base there, and there's only a small percentage that are actually in it to grind skins, to trade those skins, to speculate on skins, because the game itself is super rich and very fun to play. You can allow for room for financialization. That's been around for even Web 2 games. It's just had multiple friction points, but you can't make your game only about the financialization, because then you're going to attract, as Corey mentioned, only those speculators to play the game, and then you're not going to be able to maintain that game and ship enhancements and updates. Web 2 financialization through battle passes and all that has been shown to sustain development, right? So I think that the financialization in Web 3 is just a little bit more harsh, and I guess that's really for the studios. They need to be able to kind of like catch that that intense financialization, which can be very vicious on the way up and also very vicious on the way down, which to a certain extent Web 2 gates that by making it very hard to extract value from your time in the game. So I think the future and the kind of like ideal place stands somewhere in between, where you allow for a space for players that want to hunt skins, but at the same time you're actually building a really great game that people will play regardless of whether the skin costs $5,000 or $500.
I think really quickly, something important to note is that for a studio to make $1 million, we could either sell a $5 item and take 100% of it and make $1 million, or we would, taking a 3% marketplace fee, need $30 million or more in trading. Like, it's a pretty obvious choice. What I would pick, I'm just going to take the $1 million and not try to facilitate 30 million.
Yeah, I think that Corey really pointed out a very sensitive but very real point about operating a game legacy and it's clearly one of the most played games next to or after Axie Infinity. Last year, I don't know about the stats this year, but still very popular. People still know about the game, but obviously, as with Axie, the prices of its utility tokens has fallen along with the market, and it's of no fault of theirs. But whilst a lot of players, a lot of scholars complain that they're starting to earn less, they're not able to get any more bonus, any more money from playing these games, the studio is actually the studio's ability to continue building better games continues to shrink as these things fall, right? Because they're not trading any much more than they were last year. So it's a very stark reality that I think many people out there do not see. I actually strongly agree that studios should learn how to make money for themselves first, because if they can't take care of themselves, then they can't take care of anybody else. Unfortunately, Joe and myself, we get pushed by games every single day, all the time. To these games, the easy way out is just to raise money from people like yourselves and everyone else. But obviously now we've become smarter as well over the months. And now we start to ask questions such as, how are you going to be profitable? How are you going to be cash flow positive? How are you going to run it like an actual business? So in order for a game, I think in order for a game to decide on their business model or their revenue model, I think what's most important for them to decide on first is whether they are building a play to earn game or a play for fun game. Because in my opinion, the strategy is completely different. If it is a play to earn game, then clearly coming up with better economics, coming up with stranger tokenomics would be the solution to that. So it's all math basically. But if it's a play for fun game, then you got to go for hire more traditional studio people, hire publishers, get them to help, get them to advise, and learn how to build a game that is very, very sticky at riots. They have this 1,000 hour rule, which basically means that every single game that they publish globally must at least be played for 1,000 hours over the lifetime of the player's experience with that specific game. So that's how they build League of Legends and all the other games that we know. So I think that's on the studio front. I think studios need to get more creative in making money, firstly by deciding on their strategy, whether it's play to earn or play for fun. I think for players, it's really caveat emptor. This is still a very uncharted space of crypto. During the Axie boom, one team was $3,000, $4,000 US per team of 3 Axies. One Pega was like, I don't know, too much. Yeah, one horse, $10,000. Right now, it's like, I don't know, $3. Oh wow! Yeah. Yeah, but obviously when you were selling it for $10,000, when you got it for, I don't know, $5, no one's complaining, right? But then when you buy it at $3,000 and then now you sell it for $30, everyone's bitching and saying that it's a rug pull and it's a slow rug. I just feel that these comments are all undeserved, and at the end of the day, it's really caveat emptor.
That's interesting. I guess just before we wrap up, one last question. What do you think is the biggest lesson strategy gaming or future gaming can take from the current traditional gaming model? Right? Besides the business model and being able to turn profit, what else do you think you can take from that as you get into the future?
So you mean what can we take in Web3 gaming from Web2? So I think the narrative has been, I think one, if you're going to make a game for degens, make a game for degens. If you're going to make a game for regular people, make a game for regular people. I think that's pretty large takeaways that, like the issue is the way NFTs have been used, it's financializes the game, and then players start to not really think about the game anymore, they just think about making money. But if you're able to design it into where you have to kind of go through a lot, and then there's a focus on ownership. So there's ways we can kind of reduce that financialization and turn it more into utility. Then I think it can work. But I mean, basically, how many people watch a movie to earn money? Are you gonna sit through a horrible 2-hour long movie if you earn a little bit? I mean, some people might, but I think people tend to want to enjoy themselves when they watch a movie, right? And at the same time, are you going to play a game because it's on AWS? No. So it can't just be based on the tech narrative, right? It's all about stories, right? I mean, that's kind of how humans are, right? Even before we had like the history, we passed down our history like orally, right? This is all about that continuation of the human narrative, right? The human experience, shown through media, right? Shown through games.
I think probably a good lesson would be that this shit takes a long time to figure out, because gaming's been around a long time and they're just figuring it out and based on the growth, I guess. And also being successful as a game in general is difficult. You can't just pivot from Web3 to Web2 and be like, screw it, I'm gonna just make some money in Web2. Like, it's still effing difficult as hell. So yeah, obviously it's exceptionally difficult in Web2. I think that's a good lesson. It takes a long time, and there's also a lot of people failing in Web2 as well. So yeah, I guess that's what I'm looking for when we try to adopt things from Web2. You always look at the ones that are the outliers, similar to Axie bringing in $1 billion, me being like, I'm gonna get $1 billion as well. Wasn't easy. So I assume it's gonna be the same thing.
One good thing that I think the Web2 does really well and is the onboarding process, and the onboarding process and the richness of the onboarding process. So if you were to kind of liken, for example, a game to the car industry is very different types of users, right? There's people who are happy to just be Grab riders their whole life, and that's fine. People who want to own a car and drive it themselves, but stop there and maybe upgrade the car every now and then. And people who want to own a car, modify it, go race it, and really just like put decals on it and everything. What Web2 does, I think what Web2 can bring to Web3 is make that onboarding process so much easier, so that you start off as just a Grab rider, just tourist, pedestrian in the game. You're like, oh, I like this car ride so much, I'm going to buy my own car. And then maybe you upgrade your NFT that way, upgrade your free NFT to a premium NFT. And then you want to do the really super pro version where you trick it out and you do everything you want with it. And I think that's what Web2 does really well. Like Roy said, it's not easy to develop because there's a lot of like each of those modifications of the product, and I think it's hard for a Web2 developer to essentially iterate and roll out fixes when the market is whipping their NFT and token prices either which way. But I think that's really what Web2 does really well, and I think what could be very helpful in ushering in those Web2 gamers into Web3 and very non-confrontational.
I think that so everything that you guys have said really revolves around business strategy, which the Web2 guys, obviously given a lot more time to test out, is more familiar with. I think Web3 game studios for sure need to first decide on their direction and their strategy before they can sort of try and learn some lessons from the Web2 guys. For example, again, if you're making a game for degens, there is nothing to learn from the Web2 guys because it's a game for degens. But if you're making a game for the masses, then something to learn from the Web2 guys would be, for example, who are your targets? Why are you making it free? Why are you charging this amount of money? Why are you giving this amount of play hours per week or something like that for free? So I think again, very, very top down, very broad, but I feel that this very fundamental question of who's your target audience, who are you actually selling this to, who are your customers, I think these are fundamental questions that hopefully more and more studios start asking themselves today. And I believe that there is enough time for many of these studios to turn themselves around, even if they only started asking that question today. The problem is most Web3 studios are still trying to balance between making a fun game and making a game to earn. And that then keep them sort of stuck in this loop where you will never get an answer because you haven't sort of decided on the direction that you want to go. So I think learning the actual strategy is something that is key.
Cool. Thanks very much, and thanks for being so open to sharing. I think that's about it for what I had. Were there any other questions from the audience?
Okay, so I've been in gaming for 18 years, and I keep hearing all of you and a lot of people talking about blockchain gaming. My real question is, as a player, do I care? Do I need it? And that is one thing that I keep asking to all of you, and I'm going to ask you again. Like what you said very correctly, as a studio, you need to figure out what's your audience. The real question is, again, along with the UI, UX and everything, I keep asking players when I meet them, and they say we don't care. We are here for fun, we are here for entertainment. I don't care to run. Why are you trying to sell me? So I think when we look at the 3 billion traditional games that are yet to move on the blockchain side, the real problem is there a need? What are you trying to solve when there is no need? So for me, any insights on that, it would be nice if you can share that and help me understand, is there a need? Do the player really need this?
Yeah, so if you asked before if we need this internet, most people would say no, we don't know what the internet is. Just because players are used to the way things are doesn't mean that's the way things should be. I would say that one part. Another part is I'd say a lot of media, including games, are getting pretty stale right now. Even if it's a AAA game. Like I said, doesn't mean it succeeds because it's AAA, right? A lot of AAA games fail. And yeah, I think that with like new tech coming in, you just have to design it to where people will actually get into it. But if you just ask them right now, of course they're going to say no because they haven't seen anything that worked yet. But once they see things that work, and once it actually gets more user adoption, then people will say, oh, well, I can't believe I didn't do it before.
If I'm honest with you, I think no. No one wants it. And that's kind of the question that I was also asking in our studio maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I should send you the link. It's so funny. I'm pretty sure what you just said is basically my whole thesis. When you're saying that, I was like, incredible. But yeah, so I was just sitting there and I was wondering, like, did anyone actually ask the players, or were we just like, they want to own this shit? I'm pretty sure that's what happened, and it's more so like we're trying to find a problem for the solution that we created. There wasn't so much a problem yet. So it's not so much that that's wrong. We may just be early. But the reality is I don't want our studio to be a statistic that if in 10 years this is a problem, I still want to be around to be able to solve that problem. I don't want to be a statistic and be like, Mirai Labs tried to solve that 10 years ago. It's like no one gives a shit because they're not around anymore. Because they ran out of runway because they thought it was irrelevant. I'd rather just focus on what's good now, and when the time comes, have enough money to be able to, I guess, provide the solution to the problem when it does exist. But for me personally, I know other people disagree. It just seems like we're trying to solve something that doesn't exist yet.
I'll add a very, very short comment. Do they want it? I would say that a very small percentage of the population do want it. So coming from someone who has spent money buying CSGO skins in the secondhand market, I would like to own it and then not have Valve cancel it the next time that they think that there's too much speculation in that market. Right? But am I representative of 99% of gamers? I'm not. So I think right now, digital ownership of our items in game is a need, but only for a small percent of the population. Again, as for mentioned, we may be early. That popular, and no one knows what the end state is, right? Maybe that 1% becomes 5%, maybe it becomes 100%. That's what we're trying to figure out, and that's, I think that there is that desire for digital ownership, but they need to own everything. They need to own some random tree in Super Mario, probably not. I think that's where the experimentation comes in, and that's where we need to listen to the customer, like what do they want.
I think the target, when you say you spoke to some players, you speak to different gamers, when I talk about knowing who your target is, I actually mean not just, are they students or are they working adults, are they, degens or not. What I want to say is, so when people don't game, would you think of playing games if you have problems feeding your family? Probably not, right? You would probably be working. Would you think of playing games if you were so stressed out in your work and you're trying to do better in your life and your boss is basically fucking you every single day? Would you probably not be gaming either? Because you have a different need in your life. We've probably all learned the Maslow's hierarchy of needs in school. And that is my point of targeting. If you target the people who have no basic needs or very few basic needs, then play to earn. The earning aspect is very, very important, and that will then help you attract obviously these people as users, because it will change their life, and it has to work, by the way. And if you're targeting anybody else on top of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then clearly the fun part and all that, then sure, then it comes to the point where why do I even need NFTs? Why do I even need blockchain? Well, if you go to the absolute top, then you probably will need these technologies because they want to speculate and they want to do even better in life. So but in the middle, which is a big portion, they probably don't need it. So that's the answer to, that's one answer. The second answer that I have, well, the second answer is more a question. Imagine this, you mentioned that you're a blockchain studio, you're a studio, you're a game studio, yes, 18 years of developing games. Imagine if you were a computer studio 30 years ago before the internet was the internet. And you hear on the news, and everyone's talking about it at every single conference, every single panel, that blockchain technology is here to stay, including for games. But then at the same time, your customers tell you, this internet thing, no one needs it. But you have a choice of putting in maybe a network card in your PC, even though nobody needs it. Would you do it? You would probably do it. Yeah, so alongside what Corey said, I think we're still early. I actually don't think we're that early anymore. I actually think that we're very close to some kind of tipping point. But this technology is here to stay. It's here to stay for gaming, for sure. And my advice to every single game studio is even if you think you don't need it, you should still build it.
I'd like to add one more thing to that. Yeah, I think if you ask players like, hey, do you want blockchain in your games? I think the whole framing of it is going to kind of come out with a no. Unless you play EVE Online. If you look at EVE Online videos, you'll see people actively asking for NFTs. So it does depend on the genre of the game. I would say at the same time, the best games out there aren't made by committee, right? So you're not, for people who make games, like we've lived games, so you already have a kind of a good idea of what type of game you think is fun. And of course, you'll take in community feedback for certain blind spots, but you don't go on the street and just like make a committee, like what game do you want to see? Because you're going to get a bunch of different answers and nothing's going to happen. So I would say the framing of it is a little contentious, but at the same time, it just needs to be something where people don't think of it as blockchain. Like I said, you don't play games on AWS, right? So, but yeah, we are early, but at the same time, if you look at what people are building, I think we're going to have some very good examples in the near future.
Sounds good. I'm really looking forward to a fun and sustainable game. Cool.